years ago, on the 14th and 15th of April, 276 girls aged 14 to 18 were kidnapped by terrorist group Boko Haram from the government girls' secondary school in Chibok in Borno State. They were getting ready to write their physics WAEC exam when it happened. According to the parents of abducted Chibok Girls Association, of the 276 girls abducted, 57 girls escaped from the Boko Haram camps. 103 girls were freed through federal government interventions. Over 80 other girls escaped or were rescued through the interventions of the Nigerian military, making a total of 187 girls returned, meaning 91 girls are still in captivity. Where are our girls? Are they still our girls after 10 years with these reports of forced marriages, children, forced labor and indoctrination? Do we as a people still care? And what has happened to the advocacy, which inspired so many of us, myself included, to chant at the Unity Fountain daily? Where is the Bring Back Our Girls group today? Did the advocacy take a political turn? And will we see the return of our Chibok girls home and alive in the Bola Tinubu administration? Hello and welcome to Political Paradigm on Channels Television. I'm Kayla Magwa. So much happened in the wake of this tragedy, most notably the establishment of what is known as the Bring Back Our Girls group, which has received knocks and kudos from all over the world. Joining us today is a pioneer of the Bring Back Our Girls group. Join me as I welcome Bukola Shonibare to the program. Bukola Shonibare is a law graduate, best known for her advocacy for girls and women's rights. She started the Bring Back Our Girls movement in 2016 at the age of 35, and currently at the age of 43, she is the executive director of Invictus Africa, a civic organization that promotes human rights and gender equality through a data-driven advocacy, technological solutions, and capacity development. In 2015, she got her first BSc in Business Administration. She currently holds a first-class law LLB degree from Bayes University, Nigeria, and a first-class bachelor's degree BSc in Business Administration from SMC University, Switzerland. Bukola Shonibare is 2021's Ford Global Fellow, an Oxford Commonwealth Scholar, a Development Solutions Scholar, and a Mandela Washington Fellow. Welcome to Political Paradigm, Bukola.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start from the beginning. We've heard of so many people that founded the Bring Back Our Girls group. How did it start? When did it start? What's the story?
The Bring Back Our Girls group started both online and then offline. Online sometime around April 17 to 18. That was a few days after the abduction of the Chibok girls, when Dr. Obi Ezekwesili was at a book launch event in Port Harcourt. And then seeing that girls had been abducted, there were a debate about, whether there was abduction, the number of abductees. And so she called people during that particular event to say, stand up and say, bring back our girls, bring back our daughters.
Where was the book launch holding?
It was in Port Harcourt. Okay. It was something related to Wole Soyinka. It was something around that. And then a lawyer that was at that event tweeted what she was saying, bring back our girls, bring back our daughters. And so that's how the word, that hashtag bring back our girls, filtered online. However, the physical convening was then, being organized by Adiza Bala Usman, Maria Muwais, Saudatu Mahdi, Jibo Ibrahim, Aisha Oyebode, and, a few other women who were organizing to say that girls had been abducted, we must not keep quiet as mothers. And so they were doing that on another hand, organizing for a physical protest. And I remember what they were using at that time was Rescue Our Daughters. So on April 30th, 2014, we had the first march. So there was that physical convening And don't forget that there was the online, conversation that was going on under the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls that Dr. Obi, had started. So both the online and the physical, organizing came together on April 30th, 2014, where we all camped at the Unity Fountain, and from there we marched to the National Assembly. I remember it was raining seriously on that day. On that day I had a black shirt and a blue jean on. And we marched to the Unity, to the National Assembly. We presented the letter that we had gone with our list of demands, and then we walked back to the Unity Fountain. But when we walked back to the Unity Fountain, the rain had subsided at this time, and we asked ourselves the question, are we going to go off today after this march, knowing that our girls are not yet back? And so we decided on that day that we will not keep quiet. We will keep demanding until the girls return. The next day, May 1st, which happened to be a public holiday, we met again at the Unity Fountain, and from there, we started meeting on a daily basis, and now we're commemorating 10 years of abduction. So that's how the movement started.
10 years seems pretty disappointing for an advocacy to continue. Although there have been girls who have been rescued, returned, freed, but 10 years of advocacy. I remember how you used to be there every day. And even just as a citizen, people would just come sit there. My family, we used to go there and just sit, because this tragedy was crazy to all of us. But at some point, it did seem like the advocacy had stopped on some level. There was so much being said. But I want to start with the reduction in the days and why that happened. What happened to the zeal?
I won't say anything happened to the zeal. I would say, of course, lethargy set in. It's not easy to come out on a daily basis for that number of years. People started getting tired, but most importantly, people started getting tired mentally and psychologically. We must not take for granted how much that had a toll on us as individuals who were coming out on a daily basis to the Unity Fountain to campaign on the same issue. Abuja was meeting daily up until COVID, and then things started going down, but there were still people who were coming out one way or the other. This 10 years then became sort of like an opportunity for all of us to come back again. So we're all at the Unity Fountain on Sunday, April the 14th, to do the commemorative event.
So let's talk a bit about some of the confrontations you had to deal with. I remember tear gas on a few occasions. Even as journalists, we kept wondering, why are they being tear gassed?
So I spoke about confrontation within the context of approach to advocacy. The fact that there were some activities we're engaged in that were not, sit at the table and discuss, but there were those that we had protest. But as we, on the demand side, were engaging in those, face you, and you remember those matches that we had where police were cordoned off, a particular street and refused, and then they will hold their hands together and stop us from walking, and all of that. But there was also sort of like confrontational violent response from the state, and many times we were tear gassed, many times we were beaten, many times, we were literally physically stopped from moving forward. I don't know if you recall a picture of Dr. Obi sitting down on the floor. She had a scarf on and a long boo-boo. That day was May of that particular year. I can't remember if it was 2015 or that same 2014. And these groups of thugs came to the Unity Fountain, and I remember how we were just there having our usual meeting, and they just came and invaded the Unity Fountain and started taking our chairs, throwing it up and down, breaking our chairs, beating us, charging at us and doing so many things. And in the course of that, until we just sat on the floor, and said, do whatever you want to do. Some other people sat on the floor. At some point, we all just held our hands together, and we said, just do whatever that you want to do. I mean, thinking about it and thinking back about, thinking back at everything that happened then, just because we came out and were standing for Chibok girls. I remember one of us was actually stabbed, on that day. And I think it was Morocco, and he was saying that I have been stabbed, because those guys came, and were doing all sorts, but we didn't know who was doing who was doing what. But the painful part of this whole thing was that the police were present at the Unity Fountain watching that happen on that day. And they didn't do anything. They didn't stop those guys. And the beating and everything continued. And we kept telling ourselves that regardless, that we're going to keep fighting for the Chibok girls. Our legitimacy to fight for the Chibok girls was questioned. I remember when we went to court, and we had to sue CP Umbu, Commissioner of Police Umbu, who then banned the sit out, that we shouldn't convene and all of that. And then we went to court represented by Femi Falana SAN. And they questioned our local standard, that what legitimacy do we have to stand for the Chibok girls? And we told them that injury to one Nigerian is injury to all of us, that we need not come from Chibok for us to be able to stand for the girls. And so our coming out is on the basis of the fact that first, we are humans, second, we are Nigerian, that are all connected, by the same identity. And that for us, shaped. So the confrontation, I would call it the violent confrontation or violent response from the state at the time, was fueled by issues around, political polarization, because at that time we were seen as political, elements who were doing the Bring Back Our Girls because we wanted to discredit the Goodluck Jonathan administration at the time. Till date, there are friends that we've lost that no longer are friends with us simply because they felt that, you guys came out and you booted out Goodluck Jonathan. There are friends that we've lost, family members, that no longer engage with us on the basis of the fact that they felt that we were doing something for political gains, we're doing something for pecuniary gains, we're doing it for popularity. Some even felt that we're doing it because we wanted political appointment or to negotiate political, gains, So all of those things were what was happening. And then don't forget also the character assassination that was going on. I don't know if you remember, I was always carrying the daily photo campaign, counting the number of days. That thing, I've never talked about it, but that thing affected me mentally. Just doing that on a daily basis, carrying that placard. And people don't understand the effect of doing that. Simply carrying the placard, writing and counting. And counting within the context of not knowing when it will end. I'm sorry. People felt it was for retweets, it was to be seen, it was to have good followership, and all of that. But for some of us, it was deeper than that. I'm a mother, I have a daughter. There's so many of us that came out because we connected on the basis of the fact that we're not just human beings or Nigerians. We also have children, that we must protect their future. And that if the Chibok girls are not brought back, we have no story for us to tell our children that we were alive and we were adults and we had agency at the time this happened and we didn't do anything. It's not just a failure on who we are as humans, but who we are as mothers, as fathers, and as relatives of young, voiceless, vulnerable children whose only crime was to seek education.
Let's talk a bit about the relationship we had with several administrations. You talked a bit about some of the things that you faced under the Goodluck Jonathan administration, and we'll get to this political question in a bit. Now, from the Goodluck Jonathan administration, you also had to deal with the Buhari administration, which many people thought would be friendlier towards the group, and for several reasons. Now let's bring up that politics, because one of the co-conveners, she was Hadiza Bala Usman. And I remember that she was made, at the time when Goodluck Ebele left office and President Buhari came in, she was made chief of staff, I think, to Governor El-Rufai. And then after that, she was appointed to the Nigerian Ports Authority, even though she was suspended when her second term came up. But she's still in government. She's in the Bola Tinubu administration. Now, what happened? Was there some kind, and another thing about this particular woman I'm talking about was the fact that she's one of the signatories that formed the All Progressives Congress. So let's look at it in the context of, which is where, you know, we have to understand where people are coming from with their criticism. She was a member of, she was one of the signatories to create the All Progressives Congress, and that was in 2013. For an election that's coming up in 2014, and then she is a part of a group that in many people's minds, like you said, was discrediting the Goodluck Ebele Jonathan administration. And for many Nigerians, that actually paved the way for the Buhari administration to come into power. Do you get the context from where this criticism is coming from? And what happened with the relationship between the group and the Buhari administration afterwards?
So let me start with the criticism, and then I'll come to the issue of the relationship. And we get this a lot, because Hadiza is not the only member of the Bring Back Our Girls movement that have, you know, gone into politics. But let's use Hadiza as the case in point, based on the question that you asked. One thing we're failing to realize in this criticism is that Hadiza had been, you know, with Governor El-Rufai way before the abduction of the Chibok girls. Way before then, she did a youth corps service, you know, with Governor El-Rufai when he was here in Abuja, I think BPP or something, I can't remember what the agency is. Hadiza did a youth service there. And so she's been at that helm, you know, of affairs. And by the time the Chibok girls were abducted, and knowing that she was, now you said that 2013 was the time when she was a signatory to. No one would have envisaged that abduction of Chibok girls would happen, and so that would be used in one way or the other to, you know, to have political advancement. But I would prefer to look at it from the point of motive. Motive in the sense that two things: motive and action. So in criminal law, we say that you look at the actus reus, that's the action, and you look at the mens rea, which is the intention. So this is not a criminal situation, but in this case, this is why we have been attacked. But let's look at the intention first. Children had been abducted. There are women, mothers who need to come together. And then she started sending emails to people who could come together and, you know, ensure that action is taken. No one can sit anywhere to say this was our intention. I cannot sit here to say our intention was to, you know, have it for political gain. That's number one. Let's look at the action itself. Aunty Mariam always has talked about how she got into the movement, because she was also one of those who pushed people to action. She said that she was entering an office, she was entering her office somewhere, and I think one of the security guys or something accosted her and said that girls had been abducted somewhere, nobody is saying anything. And then she didn't know about the story, she had to go and read about the story and wonder, you know, where is this? And then on the basis of that, you know, she also then got this email, so it aligned with the fact that somebody had asked her, you know, and all of that. So I think that on the basis of the fact that something as altruistic as getting people together just to come and march and all of that, you know, is enough for us to judge Hadiza fairly. I would not sit here, and it's not just because it's Hadiza, it could be anyone. I would not sit here and say, oh, she did that because there was political calculation, abduction of the girls. And that was the basis for a lot of criticism. Now, after that, you know, like you rightly mentioned, she became chief of staff. She didn't become chief of staff because she did bring back her girls. She became chief of staff because she has been working with Governor El-Rufai. And then thereafter, Hadiza has always been in the APC, always doing all of that. So I'm careful, you know, not to say this could be the reason, because I don't have any reason to do that, and I don't have any evidence to back that up. I will only look at what I believe our intentions were based on the fact that girls had been abducted and the action that was taken to that effect. The second limb of your question is that of, you know, our relationship with the Buhari administration. The Buhari administration was quite friendly and receptive to us when we started. And that was because the issue of the Chibok girls was the center point of the insecurity situation at the time, and the Buhari government had campaigned on that purpose. I mean, it was used well to say that they were better, and that is also because Buhari, ex-president Buhari was a military general, or they say once a military general, always a military general. And so people believed that he had the power and he had the capacity to be able to not just make sure that the girls are brought back, but to end the insecurity. Don't forget then that there was a lot of bombings that was happening. Even on the day the Chibok girls were abducted, there was the Yanya bombing on that day. February 25, 2014, the Bunyinyadi massacre happened, where 29 boys were abducted. And then we saw what was going on at that time. So people voted on the basis of we want security. If people are going to vote today, they will vote, I'm sure, on the basis of the economy. So people vote on the issue, the key issues that are biting them at that time. And so, campaigning on the issue of the Chibok girls, and all of that, we felt that it was an opportunity for us to be able to engage President Buhari, which we did. He opened his doors, we met with him. I remember then we had prepared our 3-hour system. If we have time, we can talk about it, where we said, for every Chibok girl that returned, and that was after Mariam Nkeki came back, for every Chibok girl that returned, this is the framework that we expect that she should use for their reintegration, their rehabilitation, and their resocialization. And so we engaged, we presented status report. I remember I was sitting there, and then we all sat here, and then we all talked about at the villa, from that engagement. We had that, we also had, further engagement, but at some point, the doors were just completely shut out. The government at that time saw us as we're now demanding too much, and that we're being too confrontational. And there were so many.
Did they say that to you?
Of course, there were people in the government who were giving us this feedback that this was how. So, of course, government will not officially say this is how we see you, this is why we'll not engage. But we've had, not so palatable engagement with the government that eventually led to, no engagement afterwards. Now, after we engaged the President Buhari administration and President Buhari, after that, we had matches where we were literally stopped from moving close to the villa. And then we would sit there in the sun and everything. And we're wondering, you campaigned on this issue. Even on his day of inauguration, he made promises that he would never say that insecurity have ended without the return of the Chibok girls. So we were engaging him on the basis of not just the primary purpose of any government as enshrined in Section 14, subsection 2B of the Constitution. We're engaging him on the basis of the fact that he campaigned on that issue. We're also engaging him on the basis of the fact that he made commitments to that effect. But, we didn't get that, and then eventually the relationship did not go well. To the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, we've not had any engagement, but most importantly, there has not been any statement or any commitment that has been made by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the Chibok girls. Now, one thing that people say in closing my thought on this is the Chibok girls are not the only ones that have been abducted. We hear that a lot, and indeed they are not. But the Chibok girls' abduction, as unprecedented as it was the entry point to the conversation around the abduction of school children at that time. But most importantly, even around the scale of the insecurity that was going on at that time. And so the president, of course, recently came out to say his government is never going to pay a ransom, for children who have been abducted. But we expect that on the strength of Section 40, subsection 2B, which did not say the primary purpose of an administration, it says the primary purpose of the government. It means that regardless of who sits, in governmental powers, with governmental mandate and resources, regardless of who sits there, the person must achieve this primary purpose. And so we've been expecting that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will acknowledge the fact that we have a national dent, a national tragedy that happened 10 years ago, and that he is taking it up also as a government and will help us to find some form of meaningful understanding of where we are, and most importantly, closure. Closure in terms of commitment to bring back the girls that are still alive, and commitment also to communicate to the parents whose children have died so that they themselves can have closure.
I mean, I've listened to you talk about, how it was under the Buhari administration. How would you assess his handling as a government? How would you assess his handling of, I want to say security as a whole, but also with this particular Chibok girls matter? How would you assess his government's handling of it?
I would say positive and negative handling. Positive because it was under the Buhari administration that we had 103 girls negotiated for and returned. Even other than the 21 girls and the 82 girls that were brought back, the effort of the Nigerian military, who I must really, really salute, sort of like paved the way for a lot of the girls to come back on their own. I mean, the airstrikes that was going on, full attack that was going on against the insurgents, that was happening at the time, really eased things up. For some of the girls that have returned, they've talked about how one of the bombardments, they would find opportunities and they would escape. Even Amina Nkeki that came back spoke to us about how she was able to escape with the help of the man that she was given to, not married to, because that's not a legitimate marriage, that she was given to, and they both planned, to escape. Who in himself was an abductee and, was conscripted. That's the man that Nkeki was given to. So looking at the positives of the Buhari administration, one must salute the fact that 103 girls were negotiated for and brought back. Some of the girls also were able to escape. The negative for me will be around issues of communication, for instance. So communication started well. The Chibok girls desk was set up under the Ministry of Women Affairs. Oh,
there was a Chibok girls desk?
Yes, that was set up.
Is it still there?
No, it's not there. It's not there.
Why?
It's not fun.
What happened?
Well, I think that, God rest her soul, it was put in charge of the former Minister for Women Affairs, who later died. The woman will call Mama Taraba.
Okay.
And then they had a desk and all of that. The desk was supposed to serve as the convergence point for the government and the Chibok girls' parents.
Because that actually brings me to what my next question is. In your engagements with the government, because it's policy, it's not just about how we feel about it, even though it's heartbreaking and we jump into these things with how we feel. The truth is, if we're looking at policy, you have to create actual structures.
Yes.
So what desk, let's use that word, what desk are you using as a group to negotiate, to converse with the government right now?
None. And like I said, the communication door was shut right under the President Buhari administration. And it was because, things just got bad eventually. And then post-Buhari, we have President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There's been no engagement whatsoever. The Chibok girls
has the group reached out to him?
So to the extent that the Lagos family, we'll call them Lagos family of the Bring Back Our Girls group, they have reached out to the government, particularly through the Lagos State governor, who of course heads their own sort of like jurisdiction. The current minister for the economy, right? Mr. Wale Edun, was also member of the Bring Back Our Girls in the Lagos chapter at the time. But for us directly, in the Abuja family, we've not engaged the president, The advantage of this 10 years commemoration is sort of like the revival, of what we started 10 years ago. On both sides, both the demand side, we, the people, and the supply side, the government. Sort of like for us, it is the fact that girls are still missing. And don't forget that the Chibok girls is just the entry point. There are other people that have been abducted before and even after that. We tracked the abductions that have taken place between 2014 and now. And we're able to see that over 1,754 school-age children of primary and secondary school age, have been abducted in 20 incidents of abductions. And Invictus Africa actually had that data, and we released it on April the 14th. So primary, secondary, and Islamia schools, in the last 10 years, there's been 20 incidents of abduction. And in that, we had mass abductions and we have non-mass abductions. By definition, mass abduction is abduction that is 5 and above. But we've seen a lot of abduction. The Kankara boys, for instance, 344. We also had 279, that happened a few years ago. And so many other. Even this year alone, we've had abduction of 137, even though the figures actually, are dwindling, because when the children were abducted, we're told that there were 287. When they came back, we're told that 137, and that it was the 137 that were abducted. So we've seen mass abduction of 5 and above. Only about 3 or 4 of the abductions are less than 5, that we've seen. And so this provides that opportunity for us not just to talk about the fact that we have not learned from the abduction of the Chibok girls. One would expect that we will learn, and we would activate, the Safe School Initiative and set minimum standards for security and safety of schools. As
a group, how would you assess how former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan handled this situation when it happened?
He didn't handle it well. President Goodluck Jonathan didn't handle it well. The sheer fact that there was no acknowledgement of the abduction within the first 3 weeks of the abduction, I believe, is one of the reasons why we're having to commemorate 10 years and 90-something girls are still missing.
How so?
When the abduction took place, there was denial by the government.
Do you think that denial did something to the minds of Nigerians, where they felt there's something off about this story?
Yes, absolutely. It did 2 critical things. First, Nigerians doubted it. Unprecedented, 276 girls. How can you abduct 276 girls? It's not possible.
With what? I remember that was the question
we were
asking. With what?
Was it with bikes? With vehicles?
Yeah.
So, in the minds of an average Nigerian, and legitimately so, because if not for the fact that we had a lot of direct engagement, we could have also fallen into that trap of saying that this did not happen. But let's go back to that question. The fact that when the abduction took place, the government, both the state and the federal government, denied that abduction took place. By the time they were to say, yes, abduction took place, 1 or 2 weeks after, they said the abduction took place, all of them have been rescued, only 4 are remaining. Few days after, the parents came out to say, no, our children are still in abduction. In fact, at that time, some of the parents had actually taken their bows, their arrows, every local weapon that they can find. They have gone to the bank of a particular forest, to go and find their girls themselves. And people were warning them, don't go, if you go, they will kill you. In fact, some of the military men also warned them, don't worry, we're taking this up, they will kill you if you go. And so all of that was happening, yet innocent, young, vulnerable girls are being taken away. And so by the time the government was going to acknowledge that there was abduction, it was May 5 of 2014, almost 3 weeks. Experts will say that within 24 to 48 hours of any abduction or kidnapping is critical to the eventual outcome of that particular incident, whether success or negative. If you can't take certain critical action within those 24 to 48 hours, then it will determine whatever your outcome is. We as a nation, we didn't acknowledge it until 3 weeks after. So if you ask me how former President Goodluck Jonathan handled it, that was the first major failure of that particular government. And then there were now, many other things now built up on it. The fact that it was politicized, of course, that, this was the handiwork of political elements, and that they have taken these girls because, they wanted to make sure that Goodluck Jonathan did not return and all of that. But even if that is the case, did that stop the responsibility of the government to go after innocent girls and make sure that they are brought back? I talked about the issue of communication. The fact that communication was actually not going on at that time until later when we started pushing for it.
I want to be able to break that down. So even if, in your words, even if it had a political undertone,
Yes.
how did that stop the government from doing the right thing?
See, even if it had political undertone, and note my word, even if, it did not stop the Nigerian government from making sure they go after the insurgents and rescue those children. Those children are innocent. They don't know. They are not politicians. Chibok is not if you look at the map of even Borno State, Chibok is just there. Tiny, place. I've been there many times. It's not like a community that you see high-rise, big buildings and all of that. And then those children were taken. So even if that, theory that this was done because they wanted to discredit his government so that they can boot him out, it is still the primary responsibility of the government to have gone after those girls and make sure that they are brought back. Rather than pandering
could have been an opportunity even.
Yes, rather than pandering to, don't touch this thing. They did it to discredit. Rather than pandering to that, do that, and then you score huge points with that particular action.
There are other, criticisms that Bring Back Our Girls have faced. There's we touched on it a little bit, where they said, look, a lot of these people wanted political appointments. They had done the Buhari administration a favor and wanted political appointments. And then when we saw the relationship between the group and the Buhari administration turned sour at some, because it was visible, even as journalists, we could see that relationship had turned sour. It felt like, okay, so they didn't get what they wanted, hence the continued advocacy and then, the impasse between both sides. So that's one of the criticisms, that a lot of you were looking for political appointments and didn't get it in the Buhari administration. Then there's also the fact that this was an emotional thing. These women ran into this, because it was mostly women initially before the men joined. Oh, these were very emotional people. They didn't think about, ripple effects of what they were doing. What do you make of these criticisms?
Yes, we were emotional people, unapologetically so. And that is because the abduction in itself will prick your emotions. We are human beings, for God's sake. We are mothers, we are fathers, we are brothers, sisters, relatives to children. There were fathers who joined the movement on the basis of the fact that I have daughters, and if this thing happened to my daughter, I would expect that Nigerians should rally together and make sure that they raise their voices and actions and deploy every arsenal to make sure that my child is brought back. There was an emotional connection to it. I joined the movement not just because I'm a Nigerian or I'm a mother. I joined the movement because I know what it means to be sexually abused. And then when you're sexually abused within the context of the fact that you are not granting your consent, the Chibok girls had been abducted, no sexual relations that was happening within the context of the abduction of the Chibok girls would have been consented to. And so I knew that, I know what it means to be denied of education, not having the resources to be able to go to school. Forget all of those certificates that you reeled out that I have gathered in the last 10 years, by the way. In the last 10 years, there are people who have to fight, who have to stand on the street to beg. I stood on the street to beg for money for us to be able to eat at that time. I know poverty firsthand. You have Chibok girls, children of unknown poor parents, who, even in the face of insurgency, Boko Haram means Western education is forbidden. Even in the face of a choice between being educated and staying alive, they dared to. And you say there will not be emotions. There will be emotions too. Everybody, when Aisha Yusufu talks about how she connected to it, she will tell you the emotional aspect of it, how it was one aspect of that abduction connected to something she struggled with. When Maureen Kabrik also talks about when even Antiope, I remember one of the things that was happening then, people from Antiope's village not village, let me not misrepresent, but people from our side were sending pictures of people who were killed during the 1967 to 1970 civil war, to her to say, these are the people that you are standing for, their Chibok girls. And you say emotions will not be there. You come to the Unity Fountains, we literally cry every day. A lot of us became crybabies because the abduction of the Chibok girls has many aspects to it that each of us could relate to in one way or the other. So yes, there was emotions, but beyond emotions, there was also the strategic aspect of it, the governance aspect of it, the social contract aspect of it. Nigeria is a democratic society. It means that there is a social contract, although unwritten, that binds the government and the governed. In that social contract, the government has the mandate, the resources to be able to, achieve certain responsibilities for the governed. The governed, on the other hand, will pay their taxes, demand from the government, make sure that certain things are done, do everything within their own rights. And so there is that aspect of it. So people criticized us on and the sad thing about it is that the Chibok girls' abduction and the Bring Back Our Girls sort of like, till date, still dictate how people relate with us. I have never shared this publicly. I will. I had literally mental health breakdown. I was depressed for a long time. I left social media for over 3 years. Why? I had tweeted two things. When my mother got our pension, something we had fought for years, and she eventually got it, I came on Twitter and I announced that, my mom had gotten this thing, and she called me and she was like, Anike, that's my honor. Anike, they've sent it to me, and I came to share it. Twitter people insulted the living light out of me. They said I came to share that because I was trying to score points for President Buhari, who at that time it was election period, that I came to share it, and people even said that it was a lie, that my mother never worked with the Nigerian Air Force. My mother was a clerical officer with the Nigerian Air Force. My father was an Air Force man. And so when you come that, and then people insulted, people called my mother names, and and all of that. And then the second one, when I tweeted that when Nigeria Air whatever was, when they said that we're going to have a national carrier, innocently, as I was sitting down, I tweeted that and I said, may Nigeria Air succeed, because when we were living in Air Force Base in Ikeja, when my father was an Air Force man, I remember when my dad had to travel for any Air Force, he would go on Nigeria Airways. So I would see, even though I was really young, but I would see Nigeria Airways stuff in our house. I knew about it. So when I heard about another national carrier, one of my masters was in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia Air was, just imagine my pride as a Nigerian if we also have a national carrier. I tweeted, may Nigeria Air succeed. May Nigeria Air succeed, may Nigeria Air succeed, may Nigeria Air succeed. The tweet is still there. I never deleted it. Till this year, people still troll me on it. People still insult me on it. People still call me names and curse me on it, something I did completely innocently. And did that affect me? Oh, yes. And they did it because you wouldn't know Bukky Shonibare if not for the Bring Back Our Girls. And then everything that I do, everything that I say is sieved through the lens of, Bring Back Our Girls. You people try to do this. You people try to do that. In fact, they even pitched me against Antiobi, who, unknowing to me, had tweeted something about the Nigeria, which I didn't even see. And then you see, people still pitch me and Aisha Yusufu. Aisha is the stronger, Aisha is a better version of an activist. You are too soft, you cannot. And so you hear all of this, you question your own identity. I went through a period where I questioned, who am I? Based on the kind of messages and that we don't talk about this, or that we chest it, does not mean it's easy to deal with, just because we came out to advocate for innocent girls. But has that stopped us? No. Because whether we like it or not, those Chibok girls, so the attacks, character attacks, character assassination, and it's not just me, I'm using myself as an example. If you talk to every member of the Bring Back Our Girls, we all have one situation or one episode or the other where there has been cost to this very campaign that, people sometimes say, Bring Back Our Girls and all of that. There are personal costs. Some of us had personal costs to this. Family members, loved ones, friends, relatives, that relationship had actually gone sour because they felt that, we're attacking the government and all of that.
I mean, it is hard, and advocacy comes with a price.
Sure.
Advocacy does come with the price. I want to be able to talk a bit about the Nigerian psyche when it comes to, because that is a topic on its own. We have many people who believe this didn't happen, and and then there are those who say, even if it's happened, it's been 10 years. Many of them we hear forced into marriage, indoctrinated, have children. Should we be bringing them back? Should we let them, let the cards fall where they will? Why are we still trying to bring back people who have been forced into marriage, have had children, you know, and 10 years has gone past? Shouldn't we just let sleeping dogs lie?
No, we shouldn't. Those girls were taken because of our security failure.
There's another angle.
Tell me.
Isn't it dangerous to get these girls back?
Because they are
indoctrination. You know. What if? What if? It's almost the same mindset many people have when we hear about repentant Boko Haram members being reintegrated and re-socialized.
Okay, let's say.
Isn't it dangerous to bring them in? Many people feel this way. What do you think about that?
No, it is not dangerous. The girls were taken, like I said, because of our security failure. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be brought back. Now, let me drill a bit more into that. When the 82 girls were brought back, of course, the Nigerian government never admitted paying ransom. Wall Street Journal released a report to that effect, that indeed ransom were paid in those two negotiations, and a lot of money was paid, and that even some of the men were released as part of the negotiation deal. And there was this heightened attacks from Boko Haram, and people attacked Bring Back Our Girls group. That it is you people that were calling for the return of the Chibok girls. Now the government has been forced to go and bring them back and negotiate for them. Now they are back. Whatever has been paid or given to the insurgent has, you know, sort of like funded their criminality, and then there is more that is being done. And a lot of them, and I don't know if you remember, a lot of the bombings that was happening, especially some of those that were done by girls, people saw it as these are the Chibok girls, and so just leave them where they are, and, you know, just let sleeping dogs lie. You know, it is dangerous for us as a nation to think like that, because they were girls, they were innocent children that were taken. The responsibility of the government and we the people is to bring them back, rehabilitate them, de-radicalize them, reintegrate them into the society, re-socialize them in such a way that both the society that is receiving them back and them that are coming back to this society, you know, come back to a society where there is a mutual, you know, agreement, sort of like mutual love and acceptance. They didn't ask to be taken. Should we then condemn them for life because of something that was a result of our failure? I remember when I was going to Dadori camps, I was frequenting all of the IDP camps based on a project that we're doing supporting IDP camps, Adopt a Camp. In one of the IDP camps, there was a section called that, in an IDP camp, there was a section they call Sambisa. Sambisa is where they push people who have either been abducted or who at one time or the other have had relations with Boko Haram, or who have children with Boko Haram, you know, and all of that. So they put them there because they believe that they are bad blood. UNICEF released a report to that effect, titled Bad Blood. Read that report and see the kind of stigmatization and discrimination that these children have to face again, owing to something that they didn't call for. And so they put them there and they treat them differently. And when they come back to the society, the same thing happened. 35 children came back with 21 Chibok girls. In fact, one of the Chibok girls has 4 children who recently came back. 2 of those children are twins. Now, I said 35, one of the child died, and then we have 34. 21 girls that were taken as young teenagers who had never been in love. Some of them, maybe they've never even been with a man. And then an event happened, and it changed the course of their lives. Must we then bury them because of something that they didn't ask for? So when you ask whether it is dangerous to bring them back, I wouldn't frame it that way. I would look at it more around the fact that shouldn't we bring them back when it was our failure that led to the abduction in the first place. When they come back, then activate the 3R system that we presented to the government, rehabilitate them. Some of the Chibok girls, even some of them that attended our commemorative activities, talked about how even when they came back to the society did not receive them. Some of them are seen as their children bear the blood of Boko Haram members, and so they have violence in their blood. How do we see people that way? Are you saying that if as an innocent Nigerian, because don't forget that abductions and kidnappings in Nigeria is based on ideological purposes and based on
I get that, but you have to understand that the concept of tabula rasa is not exactly very well widespread in Nigeria. In many ways, we still believe that people are born with traits. You know, we believe that people are born with habits. We believe that if your father was a thief, it's most likely that you will be a thief. The concept that you are an empty slate and you are basically a product of everything that happens to you is not very widespread in Nigeria.
I'll be very careful to propagate that. Whether for the Chibok girls or the innocent children that they gave birth to. And don't forget, and I will repeat again, we are using the Chibok girls as an entry point. Like I said, at least 1,900 school children have been abducted in the last 10 years. Are we saying that just because you are abducted and you have engagement, some people are abducted and they are sexually abused? Has that also led to them having in their system, in their blood, abduction tendencies?
There's also the question of whether we have the capabilities as a country to properly rehabilitate.
So if we don't have the capability, since this has now become our reality, the fact that there is lapse that is leading to abduction of school children, whether by extremist groups or by bandits, since we know that we are still dealing with this, we must then build our response capabilities. Response around the fact that once we get them back, which we must, because it's our responsibility to do so, once we get them back, what do? Put a system in place to make sure that they go through certain processes, de-radicalization, you know, all of those things
for the girls that have come back, did they go through these processes?
Oh yes, which is why we keep asking for reports. 16 of the Chibok girls that returned are under the care of the Borno state government. The parents are asking for status update on that. But Nigerians generally should also know, as much as we are talking about this gloomy, you know, impact of the abduction and the girls, there are also success stories. There are girls who have gone on to schools. There are girls who have, I mean, I don't know if you saw online, you know, one of the girls whose boyfriend, you know, proposed to. Some of the girls have finished, you know, university. In fact, yesterday or so I heard that one of the girls is starting a PhD. You know, so there are success stories. And I just wish that both the Borno state government and the federal government, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will put this thing on the table and look at it from both the positive and the negative limb. And let's have, you know, some form of communication and some form of closure. This is an open wound that we must not leave open. We've seen how similar wars we've had in Nigeria. And I know you know what comes to mind when we talk about that. How similar wars we've had in Nigeria, we did not properly close it. Sometimes closure means compensation. But of course, when we talk about compensation, it's not as if the parents wants to sell off their children. In fact, some of the parents, you know, who have been supported under the government, some people are stigmatizing them that the support they are getting is them selling off their children. There are parents who have literally been mentally crippled because their child have gone missing. Shouldn't we, you know, support those ones?
I mean, we could talk about this forever, but we do have to wrap it up there. But before you go, with 10 years, is the advocacy going to kick into gear again? Are we going to see the daily? Is it coming back, or are we going to do it differently this time?
I would not say the daily. I won't speak because now we are re-strategizing as a movement. 10 years, like I said, literally woke us all up. But I know that on the table is the importance of engagement. we can't keep being on this side and talk about the issues. We must also, engage on the other side, and hear from them and keep, all these demands and all these things that we expect. Put it on the table and let's see, the actions that can be taken so that the proper thing that can be done. One major thing that we keep asking, especially that I believe the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu can, prioritize, is also the issue of accountability. A lot of money, over 1.4 billion naira, was actually pledged, donated, budgeted for the Chibok girls. A lot of money has also been earmarked for their education. There's been no accountability to that effect. Also talking about accountability is the General Assembly report, that was done on the Chibok girls, which named some of the perpetrators of this abduction. We must be a nation that punish criminals. And Nigerians must know that those criminals are being punished. Because if they don't know, it doesn't serve as deterrence, and it emboldens criminals. And it's an opportunity for the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led administration to get that report, publicize it, and implement the recommendations in it, including the prosecution of those who were behind the abduction.
I want to thank you so much, Bukola Sonibare, for being with us on Political Paradigm. And good luck with all the advocacy I know you have ahead of you.
Thank you so much.
We have been speaking with Bukola Sonibare, Executive Director of Invictus Africa, co-founder, Bring Back Our Girls Group, lawyer, and human rights advocate. That's Political Paradigm this week. Please join the conversation online, channelstv.com. You can even watch past episodes of the program and weigh in on them respectfully, of course. Join us as we continue to ask the accountability question until it is answered. Thank you again for watching. I'm Kayla Magwa. See you next time.